I want to say a very warm welcome to Chief Rabbi who's joining us today to present a seum for us, for the Bechorim, for people who need to fast today. Usually here for Purim, but it's Pesach. It is wonderful to see you back here. Welcome.
It means a lot to me to be here with you on the seum. There's quite a sentimental pull for me because Rabbi Katz, I have very, very distinct memories of in Pretoria, because I'm a Bechor, and going to shul on erev Pesach in Pretoria, at the great synagogue, and seeing your father there, and your father making the seum, and so I participated as a young teenager in those seumim that your father made in Pretoria. So for me, being here and in your presence, it brings back so many warm memories for me to be here, Dafka erev Pesach for the seum. So and I know that your father must be getting tremendous nachas from your incredible work here. Because it's Chabad of Illovo is such a success story in our community as a beacon of light here in the northern suburbs, and that is a tremendous tribute to all of you, but of course it's a tremendous tribute to Rabbi and Rebbetzin Katz. And I also have a special connection to the shul and to Rabbi Katz, who actually spoke at my chuppah, because of the long family connection with my parents-in-law, John and Selwyn Struck, because I have the great honor of knowing that this shul, this started really in their home. I mean, the one of the early places of the minyan was in their home in Hyde Park. So Chabad of Illovo really started in the middle of my family, and I feel a very special connection to this shul, and especially to the rabbi, who I know in those years. My parents-in-law have told me in those early years, I think Rabbi Katz, Rebbetzin Masadi lived in Berea, right, and used to walk from Berea up and down a few times over Shabbos and many times over Yom Tov. That's real dedication to see the establishment of a shul, and I think Baruch Hashem, the tremendous success that Chabad of Illovo has had over all of these years is due to your dedication, Rabbi, and to your Rebbetzin Masadi, to the entire family, and to all of you, because ultimately a rabbi and a rebbetzin can only be as successful as the people that they're working with. A shul is a partnership, and it is a partnership, it is a family, it is a community, and a community is made up of all of the people that bring it to life. So it's been a joy to daven with all of you this morning, and I feel very honored and have a great sense of nachas to make a seum here this morning on erev Pesach. So the seum that I'm going to make today, normally one makes a seum on a Masechta of Gemara, a tractate of the Talmud. In fact, today I'm going to depart from that tradition and make a seum on books of the Tanakh, certain books of the Tanakh. There's and just to give you the halachic basis for what I'm doing, in case you're worried that maybe it's not a seum and you can't eat and can't break your fast. Firstly, I'm a Bechor, so I'm in the same boat as you. And I've missed my morning coffee this morning, so I'm not as sharp as I should be. But Rav Moshe Feinstein paskins in Igros Moshe in his Shilas and Chuvas that a seum is a celebration of a completion of a large body of learning, and he says that if one completes a book of the Tanakh with commentaries that made it a substantial learning, not just reading it through superficially, that constitutes a big body of learning that requires a seum, which is in essence, what is a seum? It's the celebration of a milestone of having learned Torah and giving thanks to Hashem for the great gift that the Torah is. So this morning I'd like to make a seum on three books of the Tanakh, Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. And I want to focus particularly just in the few short words, the last few verses of the book of Daniel, where the theme of this book is all about the final redemption and the various redemptions that were going to come. And there's a tremendous tension in the book and in the prophecies of Daniel, and that is people wanted to know when that redemption would be. It's human nature. You want to know when is the end going to be. What's What's the end point? When will it end? When will there be a redemption? I know that's on people's minds all the time. When will Mashiach come? We want to know when the final redemption will be. And Pesach is a time of redemption. It is a time to reflect on Mashiach, on the concept of redemption. It is the festival of redemption. Our sages say that in the same way that we were redeemed in Nisan in the past, we will be redeemed in this month again in the future. It also is reflected in the minhag that we have on the 8th day of Pesach to read the Haftorah from the book of Isaiah, an extract from the book of Isaiah, which talks about the great prophecies for the final redemption of the world. So Pesach is a time of redemption, remembering the redemption of the past, that we left Egypt, that Hashem liberated us from Egypt, and longing for the future redemption. So that's why I also thought that learning a little bit from the last few verses from the book of Daniel to make the seum together is something which is very special and appropriate for this occasion. And there's that tension. The book of Daniel deals, and it comes up also in the book of Esther, that because it's the time period after the destruction of the first temple, but before the rebuilding of the second temple. So it's after the destruction of the first temple, and it's before the rebuilding of the second temple. But the prophet had made a promise in the name of God and said, the prophet Yirmiyahu had said, in 70 years the redemption will come. In 70 years, after the destruction of the first, the redemption would come. But then there was a whole question how to calculate the 70 years. When did the 70 years begin? Some started calculating it from the moment of the invasion of the Babylonian Empire, because Nebuchadnezzar brought the Babylonian Empire to invade the land of Israel, and then they were in the land for a number of years before destroying the temple. So did you count it from the beginning of the invasion? Do you count it from the moment of the conquest of Jerusalem, from the moment of the burning of the temple? When did you count it from? And they all made calculations, and a lot got it wrong. In fact, the book of Esther, you know, the banquet at the beginning of the book of Esther, that is King Achashverosh making the calculation, saying the 70 years are over, the temple has not been rebuilt, you can see the promise was not fulfilled, the redemption is not going to come, the Jewish people are going to remain in exile forever, God has betrayed his promise. And he celebrates that with that banquet. And in fact, according to the Gemara, he comes to that banquet wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest, to say, look, this redemption is not going to come. And that's why it was regarded to be such a calamitous sin of that generation that representatives of the Jewish community attended that banquet when they shouldn't have. And that was the major theme and narrative of the book of Esther, is waiting for this redemption. And in fact, Daniel himself, in the book of Daniel, the prophet Daniel actually has a moment where he says, but the redemption hasn't come. And he goes into a state of mourning. He's waiting for these 70 years to come. And then the prophet, then an angel appears to him and says to him, no, you've miscalculated. This is how you calculate the 70 years. And in fact, on the anniversary of the 70 years, the temple was then started to be properly rebuilt, and that promise was fulfilled. But even a great prophet like Daniel made a mistake in that calculation. Right at the end of the book of Daniel comes the powerful moment for all of us, because the destruction of the first temple and its redemption 70 years later, that happened in the past. That happened more than 2,500 years ago. We are now living in the period after the destruction of the second temple, and we are waiting, when will Mashiach come? And there are a number of prophecies here and calculations which are brought in the book of Daniel, but they're very cryptic. It's not easy to understand what they mean. And at the end, listen to what Daniel reports here. The angel says to Daniel, Vayomer, Leich Daniel. This is right at the end, the last chapter of the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 9. He says, Go Daniel, ki setumim v'chatumim hadvarim ad eight kates. The matters are sealed and closed until the end. You will not know. You will not know when that end is going to come. And therefore, do not try and understand it, because you can never know when that end comes. And then right towards the end of the book, in a verse or two later, he says, Ashrei hamechake v'yagia liyamim. Fortunate is the one who waits for these days. Ashrei hamechake. Fortunate, happy is the person who waits. And this is really one of the basic principles of what it means to be a Jew, to wait for the coming of Mashiach. As we say in the 13 principles of faith, Ani ma'amin, I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach, and even though he may delay and tarry, achake lo, I will wait for him. Here the word achake, I will wait, is the same word here, the same word that is used here in the book of Daniel, hamachake, ashrei hamachake, we wait, because we don't know. No one can predict. We have a mitzvah to believe that Mashiach could come any day. He could come today. He could come today, and we could offer up, if we could get on flights on time, we could offer up the Korban Pesach in Yerushalayim for Pesach. He could come today, but we never know that moment of when he is, but we need to believe that he could come every day without knowing that final end point. Now why? Why is this so important? That was Daniel is reporting here as the prophet. He's saying, don't know the end. These matters are sealed and closed. You cannot know. And it repeats again. He says, you will not know this. Don't try and work it out. Just wait. What is in the waiting? What is in the fact that it is shrouded in mystery? And it goes to one of the key moments of Jewish history, a famous line in the Chumash every Jew knows, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And the Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Nun Vav says that, when that verse was first said, according to the Gemara, there was a moment when Yaakov Avinu, Jacob was on his deathbed. He was on his deathbed, and he gathered around all of his sons. And it says there in the book of Bereshit, he says, come, I want to tell you, Acharis Hayomim, what is going to happen at the end of days. You'll see there in the book of Genesis, right towards the end, he says, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the end of days. And then he doesn't. He then gives them a blessing. He almost promises, I'm going to tell you what's going to be at the end of days. And the Gemara says, he had a prophecy at that moment, and he could see when Mashiach was going to come. And he could see the whole sweep of Jewish history. He was a prophet, and he could look right ahead. And he was about to tell his children, who are our ancestors, the founding fathers of the Jewish people, he was going to tell them when it was all going to end and what was going to happen in Jewish history. And then that prophecy, God didn't want him to tell them. He took away his prophecy. And at that moment, he lost his prophecy. He panicked, the Gemara says. The Gemara gives the backstory of what happens in the Chumash. The Gemara says he panicked because he thought, why have I lost my prophecy? It must be that my sons are not worthy to hear it. And then he thought maybe they are not loyal to Hashem, and they're not loyal to our heritage, and they're not going to continue the Jewish people. And he panicked. And he said to them, what has happened amongst you? And they said to him, Shema Yisrael. Remember, Jacob's other name is Yisrael. And they say to him, Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel, hear Jacob, Hashem Elokeinu. We are loyal. Don't worry about us. Hashem is our God, Hashem Echad. We believe in the one God that you believe in. You have no fear. And then he answers, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Olam Va'ed. Thank you, Hashem. I'm so grateful. He expresses his gratitude by blessing Hashem at that moment. So there you have this moment of father with his children. And he desperately, as a parent, more than anything else, you want to tell your children, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And this is the end point. And can you imagine what Jacob saw when he was looking ahead into Jewish history? All of the pain of Jewish history, all of the triumph, of course, as well, and all of the successes. But he looked ahead into Jewish history, and he must have seen terrifying things. He saw pogroms, and he saw holocausts, and he saw destruction of temples. He saw an amazing nation with all of its victories. He saw the reestablishment of the state of Israel. He saw all of the sweep of Jewish history, and he also saw the moment it was going to end. And how much would a parent want to tell a child, don't worry, you're going to get through it. This is the end point. That's what we always, you with your children, and they're going through a difficult time, and then you can say, don't worry, this will end over here. This will be the end point. You want to tell your children that. But Hashem holds it back. Why? Why holding back the end? Because the message comes from here. We need to have trust and faith in Hashem. And that means we leave the end of the story for Hashem. That's in His hands. What we need to do is be loyal to Him, have the trust and the faith, be able to say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. we trust God, we believe in Hashem, we'll do our mitzvahs, we are going to redeem the world with our mitzvahs, with our good deeds, the holiness, the kindness, the tzedakah, the learning of Torah, the chesed, the faith, all of those things, the building of family, the building of community, those are the things that we are going to do in our world, and we are going to do them without knowing the final outcome. We know eventually there's going to be redemption, that much, but we don't know when it's going to be. And by holding that back, Hashem is saying to us, just do our work. His work is to worry about the end of the story. How will it all end? That's for Him to work out. We just need to do our mitzvahs and to have faith and to trust Him. And that's why the concept of redemption and Pesach is so intertwined. Pesach and the night of the Seder is bitachon. It's a night of trust. The Chumash refers to it, and the Gemara says this is the defining essence of the night of the Seder. Tonight when we sit at our Seder tables, Leil Shimurim. It is a night of protection, a night of guarding, a night of waiting. Some of the commentators say Leil Shimurim means it's a night where we wait for that final redemption, but we feel safe in Hashem's hands. We remember that our ancestors in Egypt had no control over events. They were swept out of Egypt with the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea, and Hashem took care of everything. They had to do one thing: remain loyal. They had to put the blood on the doorpost to say, we are loyal. When it came the moment, and on the 7th day of Pesach, we remember the miracle of the splitting of the sea. They had to walk into the water till the water was up to their noses to show that they trusted Hashem before that miracle would happen. Hashem says, I will take care of the end, but you have to show trust. You have to believe in me. You have to know that I love you and that I'm looking after you and that there will be an end point. But you need to show that trust. And so Nachshon and the people marched into the water till it was up to their nostrils and they couldn't breathe anymore, and then the sea split. And that's on the 8th day, the 8th day of Pesach. We read the prophecies of the coming of Mashiach, because that's at moments we feel as the Jewish world that we have the water up to our noses, that we have Iran in pursuit of nuclear weapons, we have a wave of attacks in Israel, we have threats of anti-Semitism globally in an unstable world, and sometimes we feel the water is at our nose. But then at those moments we feel we trust Hashem. We know there will be a final redemption, and we're waiting for that. But while we are waiting, we don't wait passively. Achake lo, mechake is not to wait passively. Mechake, ashrei mechake, says Daniel. Fortunate is the person who waits actively. It's an amazing concept to wait actively. It's one of the questions we are asked when we get to heaven. We're asked when we get to the heavenly court to give a review of our entire lives. And one of the questions that we are asked, did you set aside time to learn Torah? Did you deal faithfully and honestly in business? One of the questions that we are asked is, Tzipisa li Yeshua, did you long for the redemption? That means tzipita is not just passively waiting. It is tzofeh, to look ahead to the horizon. It's to anticipate. It's to wait. It's to be hopeful. Tzofeh is to look. Tzipita, mechake, it is active waiting for the final redemption, but we don't wait passively. We wait actively, because while we are waiting, we are showing our faith in Hashem. While we are waiting, we are doing mitzvahs of chesed. We are giving tzedakah, we are davening, we are learning, we are building families, we are building community, we are building society. We don't sit back passively and wait. We wait actively, because we leave the end point to Hashem, and then what we do ourselves is that we participate in that. We walk into the water, we show our trust, we show that we identify with Hashem, we show that we are loyal to Hashem, and in that way we are doing our part of it, and then we leave the end point completely to Hashem, while believing that He could come, Mashiach could come, the final redemption could come at this minute while we are here making the seum. And so the final pasuk of Daniel, of the book of Daniel, to complete the seum, is the angel says to Daniel, Vata leich lakates, go to your end, because Daniel was going then to pass away. V'tanuach, and you will rest from this world, but then v'tamod legoralcha, But then you will stand up again for your destiny, referring to the time of the coming of Mashiach and the Techiyas HaMesim and the revival of the dead, Lekates Hayamin, for the end of days. For the end of days. And that time will come. So he says, Daniel, you don't know when it's going to happen. It's sealed and closed, and you cannot reveal, and no one must know. But now you can go to your end, but you will be revived again, and then we will all eventually meet Lekates Hayamin at the end of days. And so may it be the will of Hashem. Thank you for being with me to conclude the Sefer. Daniel, I'm going to make now the final tefillah of the seum, to complete the seum. And may it be the will of Hashem that we should merit the final redemption today, immediately, as soon as we make the seum and have broken our fast. Then we can go straight to redemption and onto Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh. And if it doesn't come today, the final redemption, we will commit ourselves to wait actively. Ashrei mechake. We will be fortunate and happy to wait actively. Tzipisel Yeshua, waiting for that moment when redemption will come. And while we are waiting, we are going to make this world into a better place with our faith, with our compassion, with our generosity, with our mitzvahs. We are going to make this world into a better place while we wait for that moment of final redemption. So I'm going to say the final prayer of the seum, and it's a very beautiful tefillah in which we thank Hashem for the great privilege of learning Torah. To say that what an incredible privilege it is to have the opportunity to learn Torah. So I'm going to say the seum, which then concludes with the Kaddish right at the end. Hadran alach Sifrei Daniel, Ezra v'Nehemiah v'Hadra Chalan. Datan alach Sifrei Daniel, Ezra v'Nehemiah v'Data Chalan. Lo nisnashe minach Sifrei Daniel, Ezra v'Nehemiah v'lo tisnashe minan. Lo ba'alma hadain v'lo ba'alma da'ati. Yehi ratzon milfanecha. May it be the will, your will, Hashem. Adonai Eloheinu v'lev v'seinu shetehei torascha u'menaseinu ba'olam hazeh u'sehei imanu la'olam haba. That may your Torah remain with us and be our preoccupation in this world and accompany us to Olam Haba. And then we mention the 10 sons of Rav Papa, who were great Torah sages themselves, a tremendous family, and we mention them in honor of every seum. Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surchav bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa. Harevna Adonai Eloheinu divrei soraska befinu pipios amcha beis Yisrael. Then we daven to Hashem, may you make the words of Torah sweet in our mouths, and not only for us, but for our children. V'niyeh kulanu anachnu v'tzeitzeinu v'tzeitzeinu v'tzeitzamcha beit Yisrael. Kulanu yodei shomecha v'lomdei sorasecha lishma. Me'ovai techachmenu mitzvosecha l'olam hi li yehi libi samim b'chukecha laman evosh. L'olam lo eshkach b'kudecha kivamchi yisani. Baruch atah Adonai lamdeini chukecha. Amen, amen, amen. Selah va'ed. Moedim anachnu lach. Now we thank Hashem for the incredible privilege to be able to learn Torah every day. Moedim anachnu lach. Moedim anachnu lefanecha. Adonai Eloheinu v'lavosenu shesamta chelkeinu meyoshvei beis hamedrash v'lo samta chelkeinu meyoshvei kranos. Shanu mashkimim v'heim mashkimim. It's giving thanks for the meaning of getting up in the morning and coming to davening and to learning and to going out into a day of mitzvahs. Because it says everybody gets up in the morning, but we have the privilege to get up to do meaningful things like learn Torah and to do mitzvahs. Anu mashkimim l'divrei Torah v'heim mashkimim l'dvarim b'telim. Anu amelim v'heim amelim. Anu amelim v'mekablim schar v'heim amelim v'einem mekablim schar. Anu ratzim v'heim ratzim. It says everyone's in a rush in life. But what a privilege it is to rush to do mitzvahs. Anu ratzim, and especially to learn Torah. Anu ratzim l'chai olam haba, ve'im ratzim lever shachas, shenemar v'ata Elohim torideim lever shachas, anshei damim u'mirma lo yechatzu yemeim, va'ani eftach bach. And then we conclude with a prayer to say, may Hashem give us the strength to continue our learning, because the seum is not the end, it's the beginning. Yehi ratzon milfanecha, kashem shazatani l'sayim sifrei, Daniel, Ezra, v'Nehemiah, kein tazreni lahaschil, Svarim acherim u'lesaimam, lilmoid u'lelamed lishmor v'lasos u'lekayim es kol divrei salmut urasecha be'ava, וזכוס כל התנאים והאמוראים ותלמידי חכמים יעמוד לי לזרי שלא שמו שהתורה מפי זרי וזרע זרי עד עולם ותזכיים בי ויסלחתך תנחה אויסך ושוכבך תשמור עליך והקיצויסה היא תשיחך כי בי ירבו ימיך ויוסיפו לך שנות חיים אורך ימים בימינה בשמאלה אושר וכבוד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. Let us rise for the Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei Rabbah.